it was good to have a reminder. And to also that we're asking all of you just to please remain on mute, so other than the presenters, in order to reduce the background noise. You sent in some really great questions, which we really hope to address tonight. At the same time, you might come up with new questions as we go along, so please send them in via the chat box throughout, and we're going to try to address as many of them as we can. And then, hopefully, time permitting, we'd like to open the discussion up to further questions if they're of interest to you. Okay, so how about we, Abigail, did you want to start with a little exercise?
It was more like just, we want to see like where you're all coming from. So we would appreciate it if you could like use the chat and like write in one word how you feel about your teen, like in this moment, okay, without thinking too much. Just write in one word what comes up to you. Okay, so we'll just look at the chat. Okay, anything that comes up, don't think too much. Okay, challenging is a good word.
Frustrated.
Frustrating. Moody. Moody is you or the teen? The teen, okay, thanks. Okay, anyone else?
Oh, the teen and the preteen. Okay, you got a lot going on. Okay.
Okay, powerless.
Powerless.
I think as we're looking through these words, I'm sure everyone's like identifying with moments we've felt frustrated, challenged, moody, ourselves or our teen. I think I identified as being moody because of a teen and feeling powerless in front of in a situation. I think it's things that really are part of something that we all can address to. Does anyone else want to add before I go on? Okay, so thanks for writing. I think this is also, it's a good way you can also ask us questions as we go along. If there's something that's not clear or you would like us to address later on, just write it on the chat and we'll try and
the first question was a really great one. When we saw this come in. My daughter's thrilled not to have school, but my son can't wait to get back to his friends. Which one is normal? Abigail, what do you think about that?
Okay, so I also like this question because I thought like it's so typical when you think you've got what a teen is, you've got a different teen who wants completely the opposite, and you're all mixed up again. So I think the thing that caught my eye was the word normal, because I think in this very not normal situation like this, the pandemic of the corona, it's a completely not normal situation, and trying to define what is normal is like completely challenging for all of us, because everyone is going through a difficult time. I mean, also us as grown-ups have to deal with the uncertainty and about our health, about the health of our elderly relatives, about our financial situation. Like Gila said at the beginning, from day to day, we don't know what's going to be. I'm not still sure if we have Ganim on Sunday or not. Everything's very confusing. So if we add all this to a teenager who's, it's difficult to be a teenager, so putting him in this corona time, it makes it even more complicated. And I think normal becomes much more there's a much wide spectrum of what is normal. So some of the teens, we can see that they like address the uncertainty by being very anxious. They don't want to leave the house. They're washing their hands a lot. They don't want to meet friends because they may get it or may give it to someone. And other ones are like completely Superman effect. You know, those Gila, those who are like nothing, and like I'm immune for everything. Those are usually the ones that also before the corona started, they're like risk takers, and they're completely not scared at all and want to just walk around and go on with their lives. And we see people, some of the teens are like really miserable and moody and like annoyed all the time because they can't go out and they can't do the things they want. And you see others who are just like, they look like they're relieved, happy to be at home, really relieved they don't have to go to school and deal with all the difficulties of learning and sitting in school all day. And they may have some issues with their friends and they're kind of relieved to be at home and have some time out. So we can see that And some of the teens, like, they go from one extreme to another. They can be like 1 minute saying, "Oh, I'm so happy not to go to school. I hate those teachers." And 2 minutes later say, "Oh, I miss my friends. When are we going back to school?" And it can be very confusing to know what are they feeling and what's going on with them. But I think whatever I said now is all normal. I mean, this is all just normal reactions to a very, very not normal time. And the real question is more for us as parents, no? Like, how do we react when our teens are like acting in a way that we're kind of confused? What do they want from us this time? How do we act with them when they are 1 minute like this, 1 minute like this, or very extreme in their behavior, and we're kind of, what's going on? Is this normal? Because the question normal kind of made me thought maybe whoever wrote it was like worried about their kids. What's going on? Is it okay? Is it going to be okay? Do I need to be worried? Do I need to do anything about it? And I think that's the main question, like, what us as parents, how we deal with what can we give our teen in this very complicated time when we're actually worried about them. What do you think, Ela?
It's
Would you
interesting.
add
I
to
was
that?
also yeah, I really I connect to everything that you're saying. And I'm also thinking about, just all the time, spending that time at home together, which is
Mm-hmm.
not how it usually is. And it's usually a time where teenagers are meant to spend more time with their friends and outside. It's that really time of kind of becoming their own people separate from us.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's also hard. Everyone's home together. And yes, in our teen group, the 11th and 12th graders are back in school. So for them, they've just made this transition, but it's not also completely regular schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who are still on that distant learning, there's just a lot of time together and at home. So first acknowledging that and what that experience is like for both the parents and
Mm-hmm.
teens. And also as parents, I'm just wondering also about, how involved are we as parents? And then when does it become like helicoptering, kind of finding that balance of,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned all the changes, the moodiness and from day to day. And, teenagers like to be in their rooms a lot. So are we okay with the closed door? Do they need some privacy? Is it closed all the time? Do we go in? Do we not? Um, if the door is closed all the time, and they don't come out, then we should be worried, right?
Yeah.
So finding also reasons to go in, whether it's, I've just folded this nice pile of laundry. Can you please put it on the shelf or in your drawer?
Mm-hmm.
Just
I'm
in
making
some
some hot
ways,
chocolate. Do you
the
want some?
hot
Yeah,
chocolate, that's nicer.
hot chocolate. Do you want some too?
Right.
I think what you're saying is like, it's a good point, because I think sometimes we could be like, we can see a door close and say, okay, I won't go in. He's growing up. He needs his time alone. It's important for him to be alone. I don't want him to yell at me to get out. But I think also, like, keep in mind that in all this uncertainty, one of the most certain thing is our relationship with our parents. I mean, that's something that's even the fighting and their family is there, and everything outside could be chaos. And I think just remembering that for the teen, even if they don't show it, knowing that their parent is present, thinking about them, wanting to come in, asking questions, it means a lot. It means, okay, something here in this whole thing, I can't stand what's going on. I'm growing up, everything's very confusing. This whole corona is driving me crazy. But my parents, they're the same. Them, I know they're here. I know how to deal with them, and it gives them a certain stability, which I think it's important to know when we're like standing outside the door and saying, should we knock? Shouldn't we knock? Should I go in? I think we should remember they really want our presence there, even if it's just coming in and asking a short question and walking out. I think it's important for them to feel us and to know that we care, we're thinking about them, and
Yeah.
we want to be
I,
there for them.
I think that also for teens that are maybe less communicative, and we might think that they might act like they don't want us present, but they quote us to other people. I mean, I even think in my work how often teens will come and they'll actually say things that you say to them. They'll say, my mom said this, my dad said this.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't think they're listening, they really, really are. So
Mm-hmm.
go in
That's
with
true.
that hot chocolate or the pile of laundry and chat. Yeah.
That's very, very true. Are you ready for the next question? Should I go on to the next one? Okay. Okay. Next question. So I'll read it out, and you can take the challenge of answering it. Okay. All
You
I
want to
hear
share the
is
screen?
none of my friends.
Have you got? Do you want
I
to share
didn't
the
share
screen?
it.
Does everyone else see it? Maybe just I
You
don't.
can
Oh,
see
maybe
it,
I just
right?
don't see it. Okay, go ahead. Yeah,
It came back. You've got it. Okay. All I hear is none of my friends are wearing masks. Why should I? So, so this is like a very familiar question, right? Like, yeah,
right.
my friends are just walking around without mask. You're the hysterical one. You know, the corona's not driving me crazy. You're driving me crazy. Yeah,
Right.
so that kind of thing.
Right.
So what do you say? What do you think?
Everyone else is doing it except for me. Right? Why don't you let me? Okay, so I think this is a really hard one, and as you'll keep hearing us say several times tonight is first understand to be understood. And that's an important part. Before we deal with, okay, what do we do about compliance with the guidelines is let's first understand why is this hard for our teens? And it's for a few reasons. You know, Abigail, you mentioned before the Superman mentality. This is classic teens before we get to Corona. Nothing can happen to me and I can do everything. And so that's why teens take risks with all kinds of things. And, you know, here also, not only is there that Superman mentality, we also know that the corona is not typically affecting teenagers. It's more affecting older people or people with pre-existing conditions, etc. But there's so much also that's still unknown about this. But that's also why they're not feeling it as directly. And that's one. And also think about it, the peer pressure is huge. If other kids are not doing it, are not following the guidelines, are not keeping 2 meters apart or wearing masks. Yeah. That's difficult. I often talk about the park behind me. I live in Jerusalem. I mean, there was a bunch of teens congregated here last night. They were all like on the swings together and no one was wearing masks. It's really hard. And it got me also thinking about body image and teens, which is a really big deal. And by the way, not only for girls, for guys also, big deal. And now you want them to put something on their face, you know, so sometimes they, you know, maybe that's the part of their that they may feel more comfortable about unless they've got, you know, acne problem. And now you want me to put a mask on? It's really hard. So we really want to understand that. And maybe another factor is that it's, especially at this point, it's like there's like this gray zone about where we're at right now. When everyone was in Bidud and it was much more clear you can only walk 100 meters from your house. Now there's a lot more that's allowed. And so it's kind of confusing. It seems that a lot of people just with the relaxation of the guidelines are kind of going about their lives pretty much as normal. My husband had to run to the hardware store today and it's like the middle of summer. It was gridlock. I mean, everyone's out. You know, this was a very different feeling even a week ago. So, you know, so that's also something to think about. Gray is very hard for teenagers to understand. So a few thoughts come to mind. One is, maybe the most important, is talk with our teens. Have a conversation in a mature way. You know, in Hebrew we say "Bagova," and all of a sudden I can't think how to say that in English. But I guess like at eye level, you know, really in a mature kind of discussion, and really talking about why are we doing all this? You know, the importance of flattening the curve and the mutual responsibility. And even though this might not affect you and your peers, but this affects the adults, affects your parents, and most importantly, your grandparents. And keep in mind also, you know, the teens that we're dealing with, parents are also in a range of ages, but particularly grandparents. We're doing this to protect our grandparents and your friends' grandparents. That's very important. And maybe also explaining a little bit why these guidelines are being relaxed now. And this was also a hard decision for our government to make. But there's the whole economics. So without kind of intellectualizing it too much, but just being really practical and helping kids really understand, you know, there's all different risks. There's always so much that's on the table. And you're really talking about people's livelihood and what that means. What happens if we stay in lockdown for really too long a period of time? There are other dangers that can happen. So if we clue our teens into that, I think we get more buy-in. I really think we get more buy-in. And if that doesn't work, and they say, but you know, I'm really going to be the dork in the group, or whatever word they're using, is blame it on me. Say my mom is hysterical and like I have to wear this. Because you know what? That's the same thing when they go to a party or they're hanging out and there's alcohol. It's the same sentence. You know, my mom will kill me. It's like that kind of thing. So, maybe also thinking about how we relate to our teens about other issues might also help us in dealing with some of these guidelines. What are your thoughts?
I think I want to go what you were saying about the Gova and I'm like talking with teens. I think it's like could sound very similar like to me talking to my friend about how complicated it is to know what's the right thing to do now. How much do I have to keep social distance from people? How frustrating is it for me to meet clients with 3 meters between us? And like talking to a teen and saying how complicated is it for me too. But I'm trying to keep the guidelines because it's important to me, because it's important to me to live by my values. My values are to keep to care for other people and to keep them safe, even if it's not only for me, because like I believe I'm a caring person, and that's why I'm agreeing to do it and talking to them about how our values are the things that help us make our decisions, how to behave and what they think about it, and like have an open conversation about what do you do with dilemmas like this, and have it like really, what would you do if you were in this situation when all your friends are doing something but you really care about someone important to you and you don't want them to get hurt? How would you act? How would you say it to you're doing something else? And you could really have a really very important conversation, not only for this time. I think it's also good for the relationship and also good for the adolescent to hear his parent talking openly about the complexities in life. I mean, most of our decisions are quite complicated, and I think here it's really a lot of things are very ambiguous. So I think it's like a good point to kind of just talk to them like adults about how complicated it is. Something else that caught me in what you were saying is like I also saw a group of teens yesterday walking around, but in the group near my house, so 2 of them did have masks and about 10 of them didn't. And I was like thinking, how did they do it? How did they really come and they're staying with a mask and everyone else isn't? And I thought maybe one of them is like their mum said, if you go out, and I thought maybe one of them is anxious themselves or has like something they're anxious about or other good reason. But I also thought that if already a parent says to a teen, listen, I understand all your friends are doing it, but for us, we want to go by the regulations, and it's very important to us, okay? And that's why we want you to do it too, because we think that's the right thing to do. So we should expect that they'll get annoyed. I mean, it won't be something that they'll just say, oh, if you're saying like that, okay, so I'll do it. So we should expect like it'll make a conflict, and it's okay. As you said, it's like when they go to a party and we say, no, if you drink, you don't drive, or you don't drink, or whatever our boundaries are. But we say, okay, we're going to put our boundary down. They're going to argue like it's here in the cartoon. We're going to try and keep them safe, and they'll be the ones saying, no, I don't need it. I can do it all on myself. I'll do what I want. I'll be okay. And we'll say, no, we're here to keep you safe. We're here to teach you how to look after yourself in the world. And that's okay. You can get annoyed sometimes, but we see it as our job. So I think it's something that's part of the job of being a parent sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It also occurred to me that, we mentioned some of these terms like flattening the curve and, all the issues that, why we're doing all this. And I think some teens don't know. Did you come across that?
That's true. Yeah, we had like a Zoom with teenagers at the beginning of the corona, like after 2 weeks when everyone was at home, and we were telling them about flattening the curve and about why people are at home, and they were in shock. And there was a group of like madrichim and Tnuat Noar. They weren't like young kids, and they were like, we didn't know that. We thought we were staying home because our parents thought it was dangerous, and it isn't. And we couldn't understand why they were so hysterical. They didn't understand the whole logic of why we're at home. And we were very surprised because we thought like everyone was talking about it. And we said, well, maybe as adults we're all talking about it and reading about it. The way we're not communicating about it to the teens enough and telling them what's going on in the world and why things are looking as they are. So it's a very important point. We shouldn't think it's like obvious that because they're on the computer all the time and they're online, they must know what's going on. They're looking on different places than what we look at, and sometimes it's our job to like make sure they know why the decisions are being made. So it's a good point. Good point. Okay, so I'll go to the next questions. Has anyone written anything on chat? I was just thinking if we're missing anything. No, right? Okay, we're okay.
Okay, this was a great one. Are you ready, Abigail? This was the one that came in. Lately, my teen is
Hoping,
extremely
yeah.
moody, shouts and slams the door. Everything sets him off. What do I do?
Oh gosh. This is a question we could get anytime, right? Not only at this time of the pandemic, we could get this question many times. But I think now it's like it's. I think because we're more at home and we see it more, and we're more in touch on a day-to-day basis with our teens, and we're also more stressed. It's harder for us also to see them like this. We really want everyone to just be okay because we've got enough on our plate. So seeing our teen moody, slamming the door, behaving in a way like that in the house is even harder for us to deal with. I think the main thing here, and I think this illustration is really good because of that, is it shows like an iceberg, and the top of the iceberg is what we see as parents of how our teens behave, and what's under the water, like the bottom of the iceberg, is like what they're really feeling. Because I think many times it's easier for teens, also for us, but especially for teens, to like put like an armor of like being like the fighter, like being angry, swearing, shouting, being defiant, and being very very angry when we come to them, and there's an anxiety and even loneliness. And so if we come to our teen and we say to him, don't you have a Zoom now in your lesson? Weren't you supposed to be there? It's 10 o'clock. And they go, why are you telling me? What do you want from me? And what have I done? And you're like, well, I didn't mean it. And you're kind of shocked by this really strong response. So I think the main thing is firstly to notice that you're shocked and that something here was not proportional, and to ask yourself, what happened here? What happened? Not even at the same moment. When I've calmed down a bit, I'd say, what happened here? Why did you react in such a strong way? I didn't say something that should have made him so angry. I just reminded him. I was very nice, actually. I was gentle. I didn't mean anything. I wasn't even angry. I was just reminding him. But maybe when I said that, he suddenly felt how anxious he is to go into the group and put that camera on again and see how he looks. You know, when you on the Zoom, I think you're all the time very you can see yourself all the time, and it makes you very aware about how you look, and not pretty, your hair's not, it's not a good hair day, you look really bad, someone else looks nice. It makes you very aware of that. So maybe suddenly when I asked them, why aren't you going to Zoom, they felt all this anxiety about meeting their friends on Zoom. Or maybe it's really difficult to learn and concentrate, and they don't really want to even think about school now, and they feel like they're failing us. And sometimes whatever's happening inside is like much more fragile and much more painful. And I think the Edgar, how do you say the challenge?
Yeah.
Sorry, the challenge is really to see it and not just buy it. Just say, oh, he's just angry at me. I've probably done the wrong thing. I'll just shout at him back and say, you don't talk to me like that, and walk away, or I'll just keep away, keep my distance. I think both those responses can really miss what being there for your teen. And sometimes you can just find the balance between putting like a boundary for the behavior. Like if a kid has just sworn at me, I can say, well, there must be a really good reason for you to feel so bad, but I don't let you swear at me. Okay, I don't want you to swear at me. I don't agree for you to swear at me. Just tell me what's really going on. Okay, so that's a way where I can put it on the boundary for the way they're behaving, but I am open to hear what's really going on. I'm not just saying, oh, it's a behavioral problem. No, there's something really bothering my kid, and I want to be there for him. So I want to try and put a boundary, but still open a conversation about what's really going on. So I think it's kind of a delicate place. What do you think, Gina? What thoughts do you have?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when you give also very specific examples, I think it really helps us all really relate to what you're saying. It's almost like we can really imagine each one of those scenarios in our own homes. Mm-hmm. So really thank you for painting that in a very real way. I think it also goes back to what we were saying before. And we're going to keep at it. First, understand to be understood. And that's an important part.
Mhm.
And also that, a lot of these are just normal reactions to an abnormal situation. A lot of these, what you have on, on these, which is a wonderful graphic, this visual about the iceberg, is about, teens in general. And then everything's magnified so much more during this time. So definitely pausing, that pause for ourselves is so important. Just to pause and take a deep breath before we respond, because, we can think it, but don't always say it. Don't say it right away. Just, and it also models for our teens that if we stop to take that deep breath to kind of gather our thoughts together, also helps show them that that's an important skill. And, very much showing that, I see you're in pain. I see this is hard for you is an important part. Sometimes we can talk about it in the moment. And sometimes we may also know that some kids just really need to cool down, and then we can talk about it more later. So
Sure.
if you're saying, like what you said before, I could see that you're frustrated, you're angry, this is really hard for you, but don't swear, but I want to hear what's going on. So some kids can get into what's going on right then and some might need to talk about it a little bit later, but don't forget about it later.
Yeah.
So I think
true. It's an important point.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions coming in.
I think that what you're saying is important because it goes back to the point of, even if we haven't reacted in a way that we're proud of at the same moment, or we think after, we could have said this, we could have said that, we can always come back later. We can always come back in the evening and say, before you got so annoyed when I asked you what's going on, how really trying to open things up later. Because I think even if I meet teens like in therapy, and many times they say, well, sometimes they do the wrong thing, but I can see they're really trying. And I think that means a lot to a teen, to hear that his parents are trying. You can't always say the right thing. You can't always be calm and, do right by what we're saying, the right thing, that we can talk now very calmly and plan. But I think even trying to come back afterwards and say, before something happened, let's talk about it. Or I noticed and I wish we could talk about it. Those kind of things, they're very important to hear them. Sometimes even if the teen can't talk to us, but they would say, even my mom's worried, she keeps coming to ask how I am. They're actually quite proud that their mom is asking how they am and noticing that something's going on. So sometimes it's even important to say, even if you don't get the reaction, just to say that you can, you notice and you can see. And I think it also gets back to how complicated this time is for teens, because they are in like a developmental stage when they're supposed to discover themselves and discover and try new things, and they're like closed at home. They can't really try anything new. They can't meet their friends. They can't really develop their personality. So they're kind of stuck. And if you add a bit more hormones to that, you're got like a lion closed in a kloof. They've got nothing to do with all this energy, with everything they want to do. It's like very frustrating for them. So I think a lot of the moodiness could be also just from being like closed up in a place where it's exactly the opposite of what I want to do now in this stage of my life. And it's completely different than what I want. So maybe it could be also another way to understand it.
Mm-hmm. There's a good question that's just come in right now. I'm just wondering if you want to guess it now, and then I think we'll tie in some other things later. And thank you to whoever sent it in. We welcome questions. If a teenager stays up late every night and sleeps late in the morning because there's nothing to wake up for, how do we try to get them to get their day and night at the right time?
So that's a good question. I think it goes well with our next question, right? I think so we'll see if we, if I remember correctly, it can be connected to this. No?
Yeah.
So this is also a question that I think when I saw it, I said, this, I'm sure everyone could have written, everyone here could have been written this question. So help, the only thing my team does all day is play on his phone. What should I do? How? So what do you think?
Okay, great. I'm just following this. Some more questions coming in. It's great. Keep sending them and we'll see when to put them in. Mm-hmm. Okay. This, I do think it's connected to the sleep question, and it's also a question in and of itself, because our kids, again, they're on their devices more than usual. This topic is a topic in and of itself. Screen time and all of their social media. It's a topic in and of its own, but it's magnified, of course, during this time. And again, especially those who are not at school yet, they're spending a lot of time online. And like we said before, during this time, teenage years is really a time where it is more normative for teens to want to spend more time with their peers. And so they're going to also seek to find these outlets by doing this online as well. And again, not all teens. We do have to remember that for some teens, actually, this might actually be a safer time if they're having a hard time socially in general when they go to school. They might actually feel more comfortable at home because they don't have to. Those, I just don't want to forget, those are teens that we also have to help them find ways to socialize in a way that's safe for them. It doesn't mean that they have to be on, I was going to say Instagram, but that might even be old for them. To know what's the newest, but they're at least having contact with one or two or a few people just to have some of that contact. But really about the whole topic of the screen time, again, first understand to be understood. Really truly empathize with our teens about what this time is like for them, and we have to expect that there is going to be more time spent on social media than usual. That's the circumstance.
I read in some place that they were saying that in a young age, as parents, we're like the pressure buffer for our kids. If they're feeling stressed, so they come to us, and then we act as something that can help them deal with the pressure. And teenagers, for teenagers, we're not the pressure buffers anymore. So the ones who are their pressure buffers are their friends. So that means that in this time when they need their friends the most, when their friends could be the ones who support them and give them help, they could be the best pressure buffer. They actually have to be in social distance from them. And I think the devices and the media and the technology is amazing for them, because otherwise I would be very worried if they were all at home and not able to talk to each other. I think they would be developmentally, it would be much worse, and I would be much more worried for the teenagers, and like seeing them on their phones with their friends, trying to connect in any way they can. That's like the healthy thing we would expect for them to try and do. And I think it's something that we should also remember that part.
During the Spanish flu, they didn't have Zoom or WhatsApp.
I don't know how they went through it, yeah.
So, it's at least something that our teens have this form of connection. So I'm really glad you mentioned that, Abigail, because it's important to say what's good about this, is to really acknowledge what's good about it. And I'm not going to say but, and along with that and is very important. Just a little sidebar. Very often we say this and this and this, but really we're going to hold both at the same time.
Yeah.
This is a really healthy connection for them to their friends, our teens to their friends. And at the same time, we shouldn't be afraid to set boundaries and limits, because they really need it. And it's really, really hard for them to do it on their own. We talked about that a couple slides back, right? It's really hard for teens to be able to do that on their own. So a few ideas, again, it's talking about things. The same way we said before, talk about things not in the heat of the moment, but talk about kind of setting up a plan. I really saw a nice idea about setting up a family plan, which really starts with us setting the example. Are we constantly looking at our screens, and do we bring our phones to the dinner table? I mean, our kids of all ages are watching us all the time. So that's an important piece. The things that maybe can be included in a family plan are, where and when do we use our phones? And for every family, that's also can be different. Some families also have it set up that the whole Wi-Fi goes off at a certain time. Where are the phones used? Where they're not used? Some no-use zones could be the kitchen, the dinner table. Some families have a basket in the kitchen drawer that all the phones go in, including the parents' phones. And it's set up also in a way that it isn't, my parents are spying on me, but just we all do it. This is a culture, because we're going to actually connect with each other and make eye contact. It's so important. It's so important even beyond what we're talking about right now. I think about teens and young adults who I've worked with in my practice as well, who come in and talk about how, it's so uncomfortable for them also to deal with silences and awkwardness in real interactions. That's some of their adjustment. Let's say when they go on to living in a dorm with other people, if they're doing that in a college life, or if they are in an ulpana or a yeshiva high school with a dorm, it's very different. So when we actually having in-person interactions around the family table, it also helps them with that, with the actual interpersonal interaction. We mustn't forget that. And at night, talking about having a device curfew. And again, not to make our teens feel like little children. They need that boundary. They might not, and this is going to connect to the sleep issue, they really might not be able to shut it off themselves, especially because especially when there's social drama and there's so much that may be going on. Yeah. So they might not like the term device curfew, but we can just call it that amongst ourselves. But maybe it's just, where are we charging our phones at night? Some families may say charge it in parents' bedroom. I don't think they'll go for that so much. Or charged in the kitchen. Just kind of like, this is our charging station. Mm-hmm. And not to belittle, but somewhere underneath that actually might help them. They do say also that it's best for phones to be turned off, devices, an hour before sleep time. The blue light that's emitted from the phone actually does interfere. Studies have shown interfere with sleep. So that's also something that's important. It may be important to also educate our kids about. And of course, the later the hour, and our teens can keep different hours than us, but first of all, the drama can increase, right? So some of the real tough stuff that goes on between kids can happen later. And of course, that's also a time, if there's less kind of supervision, to be exploring things that may be inappropriate. So that's also as important, to make sure that we have, and every family has to make that decision about what level of internet filtering is in the home. Our kids need that, need something. Most of the internet providers can provide even a basic setup for free. But of course our teens are smarter, so we need to help them with that. And more important is the trust, is open conversations about the internet. Not to sound like, old and boring, but really joining with them, the same way we said with the guidelines for Corona. Like, let's have an open talk about what's going on and why we're keeping these guidelines. It's the same thing when it comes to screen time. I think our kids will really appreciate it. We said this also before. They're really listening to what we're saying. Like said to you, they quote you when they come to see us. So keep talking. And it's important to think about some of these ideas with them.
I think also when you're talking, what you're saying, also the open conversation could also be like trying to explore together with them what they're doing on their phone for such a long time. What kind of things are they looking for there? Are they all the time in communication with others, like expressing what they're feeling, like supporting their friends? Or are they doing like passive things, like, going through pictures of, singers, and just looking at them in a passive way just to try and think of something else? And that's less something we would say it would to do with their development. It's just like to pass the time. And then we can talk about what kind of use of the phone is something that is really making you more in communication, or giving you knowledge, or all the good things we can say about the technology, and which things are just like to pass time, and maybe those are things which are not so good to use the technology. You can do other things like just so I think that's also something that can open the conversation to make it like more, because we can also notice about ourselves what we're doing with our phones all the time. What do we use it for? And what things do we want to do more? And what things are we happy about? What things do we say, oh, we should stop doing that?
Right.
So I think
right. It might also be good for us to be aware and to learn what our teens are into. Like, for example, a lot of kids are into Fortnite, and that's really a dangerous game. So it's good to know what that is. At the same time, like now during Corona, there's all these fun TikTok competitions. So, it's good to kind of be in the know. We don't have to be a teenager. We don't have to be there, on that level, but it's good to be in the know, and it's also fun to connect. This might also be a way to maybe share in an online activity as a family. Might also be an idea. Be interested in what our teens are interested to, as a way to kind of enter their world, a way to connect as well. Circling back to the sleep, I don't want to forget the sleep question.
Important, yeah.
So this might also help a little bit with the sleep, is trying to understand also what is your teen doing at all hours of the night. Now, without being like helicopterish, but still trying to, well, how did it go? And are they actually up to being functional the next day? Is it working for them? Or is it uh, oh, Fortnite is really out. No, no, no. Oh, maybe it wasn't clear. No, no. It's there. I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned. I have. Oh my goodness. I need to plug in. I have a nephew who's into Fortnite and said to me, "But don't let your kids play Fortnite." That's quite an interesting conversation. I'm into it, but don't let your kids. But that was actually a great conversation. That's why you need aunts and uncles, to have some of those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that in terms of the night issue is also finding out how are they spending their night, how are they actually functioning the next day, and also knowing, especially if they're not in school, some of the schools were also only starting their classes a little bit later. Abigail, I have to plug in my computer. Could you continue doing that?
Okay, I think maybe I'll add here that I think I hear many times that parents are very concerned about the use of technology and computers and how long their teens are on the phone, and I feel that we have like a kind of distance between, because we didn't grow up with phones and with so much. We only had one channel on television. We didn't have a phone at all, and I think it's something that's new to us. And sometimes it sounds like there's something like we're as parents against the phones. We want to get rid of them. We wish they weren't in our lives anymore. And I think that kind of conversation isn't really productive, because at the end of the day, as we say, there's a lot of good things in the technology, but we want to talk about why we want to use the technology, but to put boundaries on it, to have time to do other things in our life. We don't want, even if it's good, it's not good when it's too much of it. Like anything we use, we should know how to do it in a balanced way. And that can bring us up to the next slide. Yeah, should I show it about the platter? You think so?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I'll show it, and then we'll maybe be more.
Go. Yeah.
We'll show it in a different way, because I think when we're talking about what we're going to do with how much screen time we have a day, it's even better to look at it and say, okay, there are a few things that should, I'll just get my thoughts straight. We actually want to say, it's okay that you should have screen time, but we don't want your whole day to be only screen time. And sometimes it's hard for us to say, what else do we want to have in the day? So this is it's called the Healthy Mind Platter. It's by Daniel Siegel, and I can't see the other name right now, but can you see the other name of whoever made it? But it's a book. It's called The Mind Platter, and they made like a plate of food when we know it has to be balanced, and we have to have some fat, some protein, some veg, and we always try and make our diet. Hope that our diet will be more balanced. So I think in the same way, they've made a plate of how we can balance our mind to use it optimally and have a healthier life. So there's 7 things that should be on your plate every day, and as I'll go through them, so maybe you can think about your day yesterday and how it was if all these things appeared in your day and when your team day yesterday. So the first thing on the plate is focus time. Focus time is time which is when you challenge your brain. It's time when you learn, you work. Okay, so you have to have every day some focus time. The second thing is playtime. Playtime is time when you're spontaneous, creative, drawing, playing the piano, playing the guitar, having new experiences. That's all the playtime. Okay. There's which one is there's connecting time, of course. You have to have time of communication, usually with other people, but also with pets. It's also part of connecting time, really having time when you have feelings, you enjoy someone else's company. That's connecting time. Okay. Physical time is time when you move your body. Okay. Time in. Okay. Here on the side is time when you're reflecting time. Every day you should have some time when you reflect on your thoughts, on your feelings, how your body feels when you're really noticing what's going on with you. Okay? Downtime is like time when you're just like resting. Okay, and of course sleep time. Okay, like sleep is very critical for having like a balance in our mind and in our life. And I think that this kind of like this plate is something which is, if we're thinking about it, and if anyone wants to write on their chat what they noticed about their day yesterday, if they had all these things on their plate, or if there was something that was missing on their plate. Because what I like about this plate is it's very easy to say, oh, yesterday, oh, I really didn't sleep enough. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to add my sleep. I'm going to balance my plate back. And in 2 days I can stop and say, I haven't done anything creative, no fun at all, just working and sleeping. I did everything. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to do something which is more creative, more fun, something I like to do. I'm going to go and play around, because I can always balance. Every day I can do something to balance my plate even better. It doesn't. So I think that's something I can say, that if I give it to my clients, many times they say, oh, send it me on WhatsApp. I have to show my mom. I have to show my friends. We have to start like balancing ourselves. It's true. This is how it helps, like makes it more. So I think that also helps with when we talk about the time we have with technology and with phones and with computers, because we don't want to get into an argument with, oh, get off the phone, just close the computer. We want to say, well, have you done any physical time today? Have you done any sport? Come on. Okay, so stop using the computer now. You have to go and play some basketball. Then you can come back and be on your phone. Because we're actually trying to show them we want balance. It's not that we don't want the phone. We just want them to have a more balanced life. And so I think that makes the conversation different and less like a struggle. It could sound less like a struggle. What do you think? Well,
I think it's fantastic. I'm so happy that you introduced me to that tool. I think when we think about it as a tool for ourselves and for our teens and for our kids, made me very much aware of what I am lacking on this plate. And, we're all human, right? And we're all trying to do our best. And it's just really helpful to look at it and say, how is this also going to help me be a better person, spouse, and parent? So that's really a really, really helpful tool. And I like it because it's also visual and they look like little apps. It's just, in that way, I think can also speak to our teens, because it just the visual, it just kind of may have that appeal, and that can hopefully also address, be like a helpful way to also address the sleep issue, because it kind of all goes together. It's it's a conversation. And that's why I really like this tool.
yeah, and there's something not rigid about it, because we don't have any, like you told me when I showed you said there's no percentages here. They're not telling you how much you're supposed to have each thing. And I think that's part of the flexibility in it. It's just mainly that we don't want to see anyone not having any sleep time or not having any connection time. We want it all, everything should be on the plate. Okay? Every time you succeed in doing that, so it could balance your life. And I think it's something you can also show your children. Say, okay, what do you think? I've learned this. Are you balanced? Am I balanced? What should we add into our day? I also saw that sometimes, like, because I build like a schedule for the day with no times on it, but like saying, okay, in your day, how much time should be physical time? Okay, an hour I should do like some sport. Sleeping time, I want to sleep at least 6 hours. I want to have connection time, 8 hours. I know, but they can like try and build their day how they want it to be with everything on it. And it's something you can do with them, or even like offer them to try and build it. But then it's like really learning how to balance your day. And I think it's also practical for later in life, not only now, at this time.
I think a very useful tool, which I think actually helps us with the next question.
Okay.
If we're ready.
I'll go on. So I'll read out the question, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yes. This is a good. Goes on. I'm totally stressed out, trying to balance everything and everyone. Okay. So I think the picture also shows it's a good reflection. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What would you tell this parent?
Okay. Okay. So I think that, sorry, just letting someone know who's asking a question. I will get back to your question. We must really get back
I can't see the questions. I think I can't see them. That's
to.
a
Some
shame.
people are writing privately.
Okay.
Some people are openly to the group, and some people are writing privately. But,
Okay. Great.
but
Great.
it is
Okay.
important. There are two
So I was
questions
missing some.
I want to make sure we get back to. Maybe you'll help me remember. Okay.
I'll remind you. Okay. No problem.
To get back to comments on Fortnite and also about dealing with academics. How much to push academically. Okay, so let's remember that.
Okay.
Thank you, whoever's asking questions. Okay, so totally stressed out trying to balance everything. To the parent who asked us, thank you so much. I think that everyone can relate to it to different degrees. It's a lot. If you know any Facebook group that I know that I'm on, this question's coming up all the time. It's not normal. It's not normal to be full-time at home and working and juggling, and there's that downtime. All those pieces on the platter sound wonderful. They just seem very challenging to really attain or to get to these days. So I think a big piece is first just really acknowledging and saying this is a lot. Just pausing to really acknowledge that to ourselves, is that yes, this is a lot, this is hard. Being kind of like mindful and tuned into that in pausing, that is really important, acknowledging it. And be kind to ourselves. Be kind to yourself, be kind to ourselves, be kind to our spouses, be kind. Meaning kind of give ourselves that room to, maybe not be so hard on ourselves for like feeling guilty about things or feeling bad about something, maybe we didn't do something in the best way, or we may not be at, the laundry pile may be growing exponentially, and it's just, may not be getting to everything in our best way, most efficient way possible. Some people are continuing to have household help during this time. Some people are not. In everybody, that is a different situation. So first, being kind to ourselves. We talked a lot about the platter, which I think was really helpful, and also just remembering this is a concept we hear a lot, we think a lot about a lot, and it may not be a new idea, but I think it's always helpful to remind ourselves we need to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of people around us. Instead, it's maybe a little cliched already, an example of we get on a flight, and which, God willing, those will resume, that we first put on our own mask before we put on a child. And that metaphor really resonates with me, and I think really applies to this here also, is, our kids feel it. I know I'm cranky when I don't have enough sleep, and
aren't we all now?
So we need to really take care of ourselves, and for each one of us that could be something different. And for some people it's reading a good book, getting more sleep, I don't know, doing our nails, and of course our own exercise is really important. And so all of those pieces are really important. And also maybe another thing is actually often saying out loud, we're with our teens, saying out loud, this is hard, I'm frustrated, this is challenging for me. Not shouting it, saying it in a calm way, but it's also modeling that we're human, and also that it's okay to verbalize our feelings. Not only is it okay, it's important. And that's also healthy because it's also communicating.
I like that you said that, because I think it's very important, because I think sometimes it can also help ventilize whatever we're feeling if we just say it aloud. Oh, I'm so frustrated, instead of bottling it up and then afterwards it can come out in a different way that we're not happy with. Sometimes just saying it in words, and also modeling for the teen how we deal with it when we're frustrated. We can just say it, and I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really goes a long way. And if we need to take a break, because things are nice, just take a break.
Mm-hmm. So, and maybe I'd just like to add about the picture, because we put on this picture, we put like a boat, like in the middle of a storm, and the idea behind it is that sometimes mostly when there's a big storm, so nothing you can do can really stop the storm. I mean, nothing we can do can stop this whole thing with the corona. Nothing we can do could really stop the storm that our teen is in. But what we could do is just we can, like a boat, we can put down our anchor, and we can just be more stable to get till the storm goes away. Okay, and what can help us do that is to really sometimes it's like you said, like take a time out, just like go out for a walk, take a big deep breath, like let yourself do something which is like feel the ground under you and just know, okay, I'm going to be stable and the storm will go away. And then afterwards, like we said before, we can talk about it, we can see what's going on. But I think it's really important to to stop and see how we are, what's going on with us. And sometimes we need a time out, sometimes we need to go to sleep, sometimes we need like a coffee with a friend. But I think all these things like stopping and seeing what's going on with us is something that can really help balance between in a big storm or whatever is going on. It can help us like be focused on what we need to go through it. So maybe that could be
Okay.
something to add.
Thank you. Should we move on and then get back to the other question?
Should I go back to the next question?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes, that's
I
good.
think I'll go back. Yeah, okay. Okay, your turn to ask. Oh, stuck. Yeah? I'll wait.
Okay. All right, this is a great one. Nobody does anything around here.
Okay, your turn.
Okay. So, help.
Wow. Well, this is a big help. I think it's really like so frustrating even to see it, because gosh, things have been like this in this whole time. To also feel that everything is on you is like so difficult. So I think what's hiding behind this question is like, can anyone take anything away from me? Can someone just do some of these things? I can't do everything. I want other people in the house to take some jobs. I want my teenager who's here all day to like wash the dishes, do the laundry, do something that can help me, because I'm like overloaded. So maybe the question is, or like the way we want to ask for help from our teenager. Why can't we come and say, oh, come on, you're part of this house. We expect you to take one of these. You come on every day, you can do the dish one time a day. It will really help us. But I think because of the option that maybe the teenager will maybe start saying, oh, I don't want to, and it'll become like a big blast and a big argument, and we kind of say, oh, I'd rather just do it all on my own and not ask him for help. So I think what I may say is that I am encouraging you to ask your teenager to be part of the whatever's going on in the house and take some of the chores, because I think it's also part of being responsible and part of being in the house, and we don't want to really encourage parents to say, oh, because he's going to get angry, I'm not going to ask him. But maybe it's a good question, like how we want to ask for this help. So there are like a few sentences here on the screen, and if we look at the last ones, they say, oh, honey, can you please take your plate off the table? Okay, so I think that kind of approach, which is like, oh, sweetie, just do something nice, or just, could you please do this thing, or oh, we just need to go out for some time and we need you to look after your little sister. I'm sure you have plans, so how are we going to do it? Okay, so it's something that means, okay, I expect you to do this chore to help us, but I am flexible about how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it. There is something flexible, or we are leaving some time for the teen to kind of feel that he is making a decision. He is like, it's not something just being told you have to do this. And I think that kind of can change a bit the atmosphere. What do you think about this question?
Absolutely. I think that also, the 90-10 rule, I think that's also important, looking at just what's the nature of our interaction overall with our kids. Like, what are they hearing from us? Is it just demanding, asking, or like all these other pieces that come before, which of course we have to be genuine. Okay, it's not just, what am I going to say? It's being genuine, but it'll be better received if it's kind of part of the package. And I really like the way you phrase things in a way that's you're you're part of this family, so we're asking things from our teens, and at the same time it's also really acknowledging that they have other things that are going on. So like, let's think when might be a good time, what might work for you. um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's really helpful. And again, each family has their own style, but maybe also similar to creating the family plan for screen time, it might just be kind of a little town hall meeting at home. Just, okay, there's a lot that's going on. And even, especially now during this time when we're all home a lot, when we're somehow, did everyone see that a cartoon going around? I can't think of, I can't, of like the Zoom room. Everyone has their Zoom room and the rest of the house is like,
Simpsons
yeah,
is one. Yes, it's really
yeah, it's
funny.
great. It's
If
a great
anybody's
one.
seen it, it's hilarious.
Did you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
a
don't know
great
what's hiding here behind the Zoom. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So it's also saying, okay, we have a lot going on. Life's a little bit different right now. We're all at home. How are we going to figure this out together? And maybe also having our teens help us make the plan or think together. Everyone well, usually they come up with more creative plan than maybe we do about how are we going to set up whether it's a Torah node or who's taking responsibility for what and how it's set up. And especially kids are involved in it to know how to take leadership. So, this might also be a way to help them be a part of it rather than feel like you need to do this. Might work better. And then it could also be a plan that gets reevaluated.
Is very isolated or who looks very, very depressed, and you're worried regular went maybe